thinking about moving to Seattle, Washington, but you don't know where to move to because you've never been to the city? If so, you came to the right place. Hi, my name is Gus Montgomery. In today's video, we're going to talk about tips on moving to Seattle, Washington. We're going to give you an overview of the city of Seattle and its neighborhoods, but also the surrounding cities of Seattle to help you give you the idea of where you should move to. Now, this video is just a quick overview of Seattle and its surrounding cities, but I have done videos on my YouTube channel of specific tours of certain cities. I did a vlog tour, I've done a Google Map tour, and I've done a driving tour of different cities in the area. If you want to get a different feel of the cities, how it looks, how it feels, definitely check out those other videos on my YouTube channel. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So when it comes to the actual city of Seattle, Washington, there's a lot of different neighborhoods in Seattle that have their own feel. And just to name a few, we have places like Queen Anne and Capitol Hill, which are two very popular neighborhoods in Seattle because it's close proximity to pretty much everything that's going on in Seattle. It's really close to downtown. It's close to a lot of different restaurants, a lot of different events such as, musical concerts that are pretty frequent in the city. But it's also really congested and there's a lot of traffic in these neighborhoods as well. So if you want to be in a place where it's so lively, a lot of things are going on, the walkability score is sky high. Queen Anne and Capitol Hill are great neighborhoods to live in, but if you don't want to live in a congested area, then there's some other parts in Seattle that you can look towards, such as on the north side of Seattle, you have places like Greenlake and Ballard. Those neighborhoods have a more laid back feel, but there's also a lot of different restaurants that you can enjoy. There's a lot of different attractions, such as the Green Lake Park, Golden Gardens, that are in these neighborhoods. So if you want to live in the city of Seattle, but you want more of a laid back vibe, then the north end, like Green Lake and Ballard, is a good option. But then you have neighborhoods on the south end of Seattle. You got Sodo, Beacon Hill. Those are great options for those looking for more affordability living in the Seattle area. Seattle is an expensive place to live, but on the south end, the affordability is a lot more practical for most people. Then you also have West Seattle. West Seattle feels like its own little city within Seattle. You have to use the West Seattle Bridge, get over there, and there's Alki Beach, which is one of the most popular beaches in Seattle. And people that live in West Seattle swear by it. They just love the vibe and feel. Just a little bit further out from everything else because you have to use the West Seattle Bridge. But West Seattle is a great option for those finding a neighborhood to live in Seattle. Now, that's just an overview of Seattle, but let's talk about the surrounding cities of Seattle, starting with the south end of Seattle in places like Renton, Kent, and Federal Way, just to name a few. Now, these are very common cities for people that work in Seattle but don't want to live in Seattle. In places like Renton, Kent, and Federal Way, it's a lot less expensive than living in Seattle. But the great thing about these cities is it's super convenient. There's malls, and arguably there's maybe better restaurants depending on who you ask in these areas, especially when it comes to diverse cuisines such as Asian food. There's a very big Asian cuisine culture in places like Federal Way. So a lot of people like living in these areas. Then you look further south, you have places like Tacoma, Washington, which is one of the more popular cities in the state. Now, Tacoma is a lot further down south than Seattle. People still live in Tacoma and commute to Seattle, but it will be a longer commute, up to an hour or more, depending on what time you leave in the day. But it's a great city with its own culture of things to do. They have the Tacoma Dome, which shows a lot of different sporting events musical concerts. They have a lot of other neighborhoods in Tacoma that are worth checking out, such as Ruston, which is right by the water, with a lot of great restaurants and shops. Now, if we look on the north end of Seattle, you got places like Lynnwood and Everett, Washington. And just like the south of Seattle, Everett and Lynnwood is more affordable than living in Seattle. But it's also really convenient as well. They have malls, a great restaurant scene, and is not as congested and packed as the city of Seattle. So a lot of people like living outside Seattle because of the affordability and pricing and is not as congested as the city. Other cities on the north end of Seattle, you got Marysville, you got Edmonds, and you got a lot of different options on the north end of Seattle, and you're still within a 30-minute drive of the city of Seattle. But now let's focus our attention to the east side of Seattle. Places like Bellevue, Kirkland, and Issaquah, just to name a few. This is where the rule kind of changes the further you get out from Seattle, the less expensive it becomes. Well, the east side is an exception. The median home prices and rent prices are higher on the east side than it is in Seattle. It's very luxurious in cities like Bellevue. Has a really good mall out there. It's a really well maintained city. Also on the east side, you are closer to a lot of the outdoor gems in the Pacific Northwest. You're close to a lot of hiking destinations like Tiger and Cougar Mountain. You're closer to the snowboarding and ski resorts like Snoqualmie. So a lot of people like living on the east side for those reasons. So, if you're thinking about moving to Seattle, you have a lot of different options of where you can move to: the city of Seattle, the south end of Seattle, the north end of Seattle, or the east side. But like I mentioned before, I do have more videos on my YouTube channel that give more specific breakdowns of each of the cities surrounding Seattle. So definitely check those out. And hopefully this brief overview of Seattle and surrounding cities give you a good start on your next destination. If you value this content, please like and subscribe to his YouTube channel, and I'll continue to provide more value going forward. Till next time, take care.